Hey! Nah, that's a bit silly, isn't it? Alright guys, how you doing? Jack Queen here, the cynical Brit with comedic wit. Now, me and you here. No, wait a minute. Let's get that the right way round. You and me here, we've got something serious to talk about, haven't we? That's why for today's video, I've changed my setup. I've got my black background. I'm not stood up. I'm sat down. I'm in serious business. I've got no pants on, but that's alright. You didn't need to know that. You can't see that. We're all good. See, I was scrolling through Twitter the last few days trying to find something important or interesting to talk about, and then I said to myself, oh, there's just nothing interesting to talk about. Then I seen this hashtag on Twitter called Black Lives Matter? Yeah, I know, right? I've never heard of it either. But figured, hey, it's a slow day. So sure, I'll give it a go. I mean, after all, who better to talk about these things than a guy who is so white that if you put his face next to a blank piece of paper, my camera checks my face for the white balance. So I figured the best thing I could do in my position was make an argument against the people that are condemning Black Lives Matter, and all the general arguments I've seen popping up over the internet recently. For anyone who wants to discuss anything I brought up in this video, then please, by all means, leave me a comment, or you can hit me up on my socials. The links will be down below in the description. I am always open to the 3 Ds. Debate, discussion and discourse. I'll also leave some links down below in the description, so if you want to support Black Lives Matter or anything affiliated with it, then by all means please do. Every little helps. That being all said, let's get into the video. Number 1. All lives matter. I've got to be honest, right? If you'd spoken to me about 5 years ago, I would have been probably saying the same thing. But that's just because the idea of all lives matter, whilst in principle seems like a good idea, it completely misses the point. To help people understand this, here was one of my favourite analogies. Imagine there is a house that is on fire amongst a row of houses. Do you put out the fire? Or do you spray all the houses shouting, all houses matter? No, of course you don't, because only that house is on fire, and that house happens to be the black community. Just because people are saying Black Lives Matter does not mean that they are saying only Black Lives Matter. But at the moment it is shining a light on the inequality that black people are facing in our society. And that can be anything from microaggressions to blatant racism to how the police generally treat black people. Like, for one, I don't really have to deal with things like random stop and searches or being racially profiled, making assumptions about me based on my skin colour. People just assume I'm a cunt. And they're right. They don't call me a white cunt. I mean, I don't leave my house each day and worry that I'm going to get stopped and searched. Mainly because I smell ever so faintly of piss, but that's besides the point. At the end of the day, all lives matter doesn't make any sense because at the moment, all lives don't matter. Only some lives do. That's what we've got to change. Number 2. What about black on black crime? Oh yeah. What about it? It's basically saying, well, black people commit crime, so they deserve bad treatment, isn't it? It's only fair, really. Which, again, just doesn't really make any sense. The point is around how black people are treated compared to white people when it comes to dealings with the police. For example, in the United States, we had a load of people that were worried about losing their Second Amendment rights to hold a gun. So they go outside and they stand around holding automatic weapons. Are they questioned, arrested, beaten? No, probably because they're holding automatic weapons, to be fair. However, poor little Jimmy, who's holding his placard and kneeling. Get the tear gas. I mean, you had people in the middle of the protest having to carry around gallons of milk just in case they got stung by tear gas, for God's sake. I once had a person tell me that milk was actually a racist term for white people. I'm not even making that up. Me and my boys, Creependale kids, say something. Now, there are statistics to suggest that there is a high level of black crime in certain areas, but it's a bit like me rocking up to somewhere in Yorkshire and saying something like, hey, there's a lot of white and white crime here, isn't there? But of course you wouldn't hear people refer to it as white crime now, would you? Regardless if people are or aren't committing crimes, does that give the police any reason to mistreat you? No. Is there more important factors to look at when addressing crimes in these areas without having to refer to someone by the colour of their skin? Yes. Absolutely. I mean, it's pretty simple when you think about it. Also, for anyone who is interested, I am leaving applications down below in the description if you are interested and wish to join my new gang, the Milky Bar Boys. Number 3. What about the rioting and the looting? In a crowd of however many thousands of people that are upset, hurt and angry, there are going to be some that will kick off. It's not ideal, but it happens. But the way this has been spun, it's almost like they're trying to say, black people riot. Black people bad? And we see this tactic all too many times when the media will take a minority in order to tarnish a majority of people and then sell it to you, the public. And I'm not saying burning down buildings or destroying property is the right thing to do, alright? Far from it. But let me try and put these riots into some form of perspective for you. Imagine, right, I kept slapping you in the face. I mean, it wouldn't be a very firm slap. I mean, look. State of these wrists. But let's say I kept slapping you in the face every 5 minutes. How long would it take until you wanted to slap me back? That is essentially what has happened. George Floyd was the straw that broke the camel's back. It wasn't just to use his name. But when there is a graphic video of a black man slowly dying for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, a live representation of yet another black person that will be added to that statistic because of police brutality, how do you expect people to stay calm? Take a football match for example. If 60,000 people go to watch a game and 500 people kick off, does that mean that all 60,000 fans are bad? Even then, right, and again, I'm not saying that rioting is the answer, right? But would I be better off for kicking off because I'm being racially profiled and targeted and my voice isn't being heard? Or because my beloved football team got beat 5-0 and I paid for the privilege to watch it live? Well, you can take your pick on that one. I mean, what about gay rights or women's rights? Do you think they were all entirely peaceful? As for the looting side of it, well, I'll be honest with you on that one. I don't really understand that bit. For anyone who's decided to, you know, rob an Xbox or take a pair of trainers, it doesn't really benefit the movement, does it? This is a mandolin. It's the closest I could get to a loot. But seeing as how you're out there anyway, would you mind grabbing us another camera? That way I could do things like angles. Number 4, I can't protest. What about social distancing? This is the same argument used by people that would go to the beach or take a 260-mile trip to their parents' house. Yes, social distancing is a problem and it is a concern given the state of the virus at the moment. And I get why people are upset because people want to see their families. Not me though. It's great. My parents don't like me and I don't like them. Piss off, Dad. But I mean, when was people supposed to get upset about this? Months later when we're all supposed to go back to normal. I mean, what should we be doing for God's sake? Should we be having a protest over Microsoft Teams or maybe over online Scrabble? Actually, that sounds like fun to be fair. Ideally, people wouldn't be going out during the middle of a pandemic to protest, but then ideally, people wouldn't be getting killed for their race either, so, you know, swings and roundabouts. At least with Black Lives Matter, there's a genuine reason to go outside and protest. This is for a cause, right, that ultimately just couldn't be ignored any longer. It's also our human right to protest in the same way you got people that went out and protested because they were in lockdown. Besides, anyone who's watching this from the UK, if you want to go outside and see somebody, you can, because we've got this thing, it's called special circumstances. I mean, none of the British public had heard of it until a chief aide to the Prime Minister decided to go on a 260-mile trip to his family's house in Durham. But the point is, it's out there now, so you can go. Enjoy yourselves. Number 5. Why are you rioting in the UK if it happened in the United States? Oh yeah, that's the point. Because racism only exists in the United States, right? By that logic, we shouldn't have shared any solidarity with Belgium or France during the terrorist attacks, because that's their problem, innit? The reason so many people have joined in is because it resonates around the world. Many countries have had their own version of a George Floyd, and I hate to burst your bubble, but America isn't the only country that has black people in it. Regardless, these riots aren't really stopping you from doing anything, are they? At the end of the day, if you still need to go to the shops, you can go get your milk, your bread, your double-sided dildos. I don't know what you put on your shopping list, do I? So in the UK, we've had 2 cases of statues being taken down by Black Lives Matter protesters. Edward Colson and Robert Milligan, who whilst were a big part of building the country we now live in today, were also massively involved in the slave trade. So you're getting people, mainly in the older generation, saying something like, you can't do that, it was part of our history. Well, they've done good things for this country. Ah, come on, mate, leave it. It's just a statue. To answer this politely, you don't need a statue to have played a part in history. Do we really have to have statues to commemorate people that, whilst may have done some good in their respective cities, did it off the back of slavery? And I'm not saying let's destroy the statues, but I'm saying why don't we put them in a museum and that way people can learn about them, right? That way, right, you lot can keep your precious statues and we can put something nice there instead. Now apparently there's this hit list for all these statues that people want to take down, and whilst I don't agree with all of them, can I add one suggestion? Can someone take that cunt Margaret Thatcher statue down, please? Nothing personal or nothing. I just really, really hate her. To the people that say, well, it's just a statue, That's just because it doesn't offend you. So I'll tell you what we can do, right? We can put statues up of like Ian Watkins or Jimmy Savile in your garden. After all, they're just statues. I mean, they did good things, right? So let's just celebrate that bit, alright? We can ignore that they abuse kids. We can ignore that bit, the paedophilia bit. It's a bit of a blemish. It's a blemish on the record. It's fine. It's fine. Kids, you know, kids, they make stuff up all the time, don't they? I mean, it's just a bit of a laugh, isn't it? I mean, it's fine. It's fine.
Stop thinking about it.
I'm just a statue, a dirty, filthy statue.
That's not where I want to end this video, so now it's time for my final thought. Racism, much like this virus, is a pandemic. And like any pandemic, you should follow expert advice, ignore political agendas, and work together in order to beat it. Basic human right to live and exist as a person of colour with equal opportunities and fair treatment, the same as anybody else. Nobody is born racist. Racism is taught. And examples must be set, not just by ourselves, but for future generations and older generations, that racism is not needed in our society. And if there's one thing that this lockdown has taught me, as well as Black Lives Matter, is that we could all spend time learning. But hey, that's just my opinion. I've been Wendy Williams. I'm now going to faint.
That was not a stunt.
Anyway guys, that's it from me. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I hope I was able to offer you something that was at least informative, and if I did, leave me a comment or leave me a message on my socials, and if not, leave me a critique. Tell me it's rubbish. Either way, we can talk about it. But I think the most important thing is that if you have a platform and there's something important that you need to discuss, whether it's big or small, whatever, then you should use your platform to do that. If you think this video could be beneficial to somebody else, or maybe could help somebody else out, then by all means please feel free to share as well. I've also left some links down below in the bottom if you want to help support causes around the Black Lives Matter movement. Also, don't forget to drop a like. It really helps to boost this video in the YouTube algorithm, and if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. But until next time, take care for now. My name is Jack Queen, play your cards right, and I will see you next time.
Hello, hello, hello.